pretty sure it happened.
What happened?
Okay, so what was your last question we was talking about?
That why would we be able to observe all these planets in the Goldilocks zone capable of holding liquid water all throughout the universe, but we are the only biological life in the universe?
Well, see, you've got an inherent supposition there, and the inherent supposition is that us as the only biological life seen in the universe have evolved through unguided naturalistic processes over multiple billions of years, that evolutionary ideology. Now, take into account first, they've done equations for the likelihood of life on other planets, and those equations show it's impossible. And these are the secularists. Because
based on people who exist in the universe.
Well,
they did those studies. The people that exist in the universe did those studies.
So
they're ruling out the possibility of life in the universe other than themselves. I think that's a conflict of interest.
Well, here's the deal. Here's how they did these studies. So you look at the human DNA we've got, right? GTCA. Human DNA is made up of proteins, lysine, adenosine. What is it? Adenosine trifosfatide. What's the DNA? Deoxyribonucleic acid. That's what it is. And our molecules, you got left-handed proteins, you got right-handed proteins. These are just the building blocks of life. The chances against accidentally making those building blocks of life in an order that can be even put into a DNA strand before you code the DNA strand are like 1 in more numbers than make up the estimated atoms in the whole universe. So, if you take the evolutionary ideology by rote...
If you take the supposition that we are the only life in the universe, those are the probabilities.
Well, here's the deal.
But if there's other life in the universe that we cannot observe, we're not taking those into the statistical probability.
The complication of human life...
It's an unknown. It's a question mark.
The complication of human life from the genetic level is greater than our ability to encode, all right? Intelligently designing as an entire species across the globe, our genetic code is more complicated and complex, intricate, and I guess harmonious than anything we can do on these computers, even like CERN and whatnot. In fact, they're looking at using DNA as a means of making a computer because it's such an efficient means of coding.
Yeah, it's a manifestation of the intelligence of the universe. Our conscious...
That in itself, all that is pantheism.
We haven't been able to recreate that, but we've come close with computers.
That's equating the universe with God rather than God as a creator of the universe. You're saying the universe itself is godlike in that which composes it.
I think it's a happening. I don't think it necessitates a creator.
Well, here's the deal. For you to have evolutionary ideology without a consciousness of the universe or without a creator, because those are both religious concepts. If you're
I don't have an ideology.
I know. I'm just pointing out the logic of it. If you're going to do this through non-guided naturalistic circumstances, the current idea is that electricity reacted with a prebiotic soup full of the minerals necessary for life.
Based on our instrumentation and our ability to comprehend what happened. We don't know. That's the whole point.
Well, here's the thing. Yeah, there's no way to observe it. There's no way to scientifically see that. So anything we believe from that point is faith-based. Because you can't... You're right, we don't know.
Yeah,
that's why I call it evolutionary...
But the intellectually honest position is saying you don't know.
Right,
versus saying you do know
I
what
agree.
happened.
Yes, well, unless you do know. Unless you do know.
Unless you do know what happened at Roswell.
Unless you know what happened at Roswell. But here's the deal. So, to say you do know how our universe was created and how life arose exactly without the evidence is itself a faith-based thing.
I just lean toward the body of evidence versus Scripture.
Here's the deal. We've got people from the top down that want us to believe things we shouldn't because it makes us more manageable. The 1% would rather the 99% believe the 1% deserve to be there. Survival of the fittest, ingrained from childhood, is very useful for programming the populace. But we're getting on to life on other planets. And here's the idea, that life arose through unguided naturalistic processes, through electricity or something. Nobody quite knows. Apparently, though, this random act that had no guidance behind it happened and it led to a domino effect. That's basically the theory in a nutshell. The problem is the statistic against the second step happening where those proteins became a DNA strand, and the third step happening where that DNA took information, and the fourth step happening where that information made a cell. All those things require additionally astronomical. You couldn't bet on it. It's a luck streak like nothing else.
The statistical improbability that you're resting your argument on is based on the supposition that we're the only life in the planet in the universe.
No.
If life flourishes throughout the universe, that statistical probability goes up exponentially.
Well, hold on a second here.
You know what I'm saying? No?
Well, yeah,
because we're the only observable life.
I see what you're saying.
So that makes the statistics look that way. It's so improbable that it would happen because in all of our observable universe, we can't see it happening anywhere else.
Well, and that's the thing.
But if it was on Venus, if this was happening on Venus too, you'd be like, oh, the statistics have changed astronomically.
I feel what you're saying. The thing is, if we're talking about science and observation rather than supposition and faith, we haven't observed life coming from non-life. Okay, we don't observe that happening. We never observe life coming from non-life, which is abiogenesis, which is what is necessary for life to exist in the first place anywhere at all, period. In the whole universe, not just on Earth. I'm talking about for life to exist from the first kernel without any guidance.
But I think there is an argument from the archaeological record that you can say that there was a time before human beings. That
not necessarily. It depends on the deposition. It depends.
No, there is a time.
Well,
where.
Let me ask you a question. Say I drop this pipe. Feel how heavy the pipe is.
But there's a time where you can look at archaeology.
Now say I drop this. Now if I drop this into water and I drop this into water, which is going to sink faster, this or this? This is. It's more dense. Okay. This is going to take a while to get waterlogged and sink. There's bodies that don't sink right away because they are not dense enough to sink like birds. Whereas there are certain things like humans which can sink a little bit quicker, and a dinosaur is probably going to sink a lot faster than either of those. They're cold-blooded, they've got more dense bone structure according to the archaeological evidence. So, hydrologic sorting says that that which is going to sink quicker is going to be on the bottom sooner. So if that's the case, you would expect there to be these huge, you expect there to be mollusks and stuff that was already at the bottom, and then you'd expect there to be huge critters like brontosauruses, and then going up to man and going up to birds. And they found in the laboratory, they've done testing at creation institutes, that's what they are, I'm not going to hide behind it, that's what they are, that have shown where when you throw more dense things into the water and mix it up with sand and whatnot to replicate the flood situation, the denser stuff sinks quicker. So the explanation from the creationist perspective for why you have the archaeology as it is that sometimes when you had deposition of layers very quickly through a catastrophe like a worldwide flood, the fatter, heavier stuff sank faster than the lighter stuff.
My skepticism from that kind of inquiry and experimentation comes from you're starting with a conclusion.
Deep time evolutionary ideology that there is no God, that it is all mechanistic.
No.
That it's all
because it has evolved through time. It used to
evolved through time.
It used to be the mainstream narrative was that the Earth was the center of the universe.
And that's
that evolved through time. Through Scientology,
through
scientific observation.
The Ptolemaic fight, because Ptolemy observed that the Earth is not the center of the solar system.
So that is a shifting thing based on evidence.
But it is evidence. That's the thing. We don't have evidence here. What we have with evolution is supposition.
The creationist narrative does not shift based on evidence.
It never
starts with a conclusion.
The creationist
starts with a conclusion. This is what happened, and this is why.
Well, here's
That's not what science does.
Well, hold on.
As much as you can criticize it for
Christianity is not saying it is a scientific belief system. It's saying that science doesn't conflict with it. What it's saying is that we do start from a conclusion. We're saying that it's a faith system. You have to have faith in God. It's the evidence of things not seen, the substance of things hoped for. This is faith, right? Here's the contention I have. Evolutionary ideology says it's not a faith, but then it is also starting from the same perspective, which is an evidence. Yes! Creationism, those who follow Christ, those who follow God. We're saying it's faith.
It's not starting with a conclusion. It's based on what our instruments can measure.
Well, you can't measure the rate of evolution, and you can't measure how life began through non-guided processes.
Through paleontological evidence and our carbon dating, as limited as it is.
Don't make me look up the sources on your
That's what we've observed through actual instrumentation, and it's not some narrative that's created from a central supposition that's
or
the
is
conclusion.
it? Or is it? See, here's the thing.
Because it's changed over time. It's not a continual story that people have subscribed to. It's a methodological way of observing things. It doesn't start with a conclusion.
Evolutionary ideology isn't as new as we think it is. There's always been two camps in all of existence of mankind.
But they haven't remained static. One has remained static.
No,
one hasn't.
You can distill it down to these two things, however you phrase it and whatever your specifics are. One camp says we exist because we've been created. One camp says we exist through no creative purpose, but through some naturalistic process which brought us here unguided. We'll call it evolution, call it hedonism, call it Buddhism, call it Hinduism. Call it what you will. Mankind has vacillated between these two viewpoints forever. That is the great... we're in it. We're in the clutch of that great divide, which is to say that how we exist here, whether it came about through guided natural processes or not, that's a very fundamental question and it informs your ideology. Now, our original question is whether or not there's life on other planets. Now, I'm trying to give both views here.
But you're framing both of them as assumptions.
I'm starting.
Whereas our sense data, all of our instrumentational data, all of our scientific hypotheses are leading toward one thing.
I don't think so. No, I think there's a slant to it. I think we have two slants to consider. And the truth is that there's sometimes folks from
there's no sense data that leads you to God.
Oh, there's plenty. There's plenty. You can look at you can look at Nineveh. You can look at Sodom.
He hasn't talked to me. I ain't talked to me.
Well, my friend, I would pray over this.
I was raised Christian. Ain't talking to me.
If you think in your head, he hears you. If you really mean it, you can ask him to prove himself in a way that's not the bacteria.
You're talking to the bacteria in your gut.
In a way you couldn't possibly do it.
When you pray, you're praying to your gut bacteria. Okay, that's your internal neurons that you're praying to. Your subconscious mind that Freud called it the subconscious mind. That's who you're praying to. You're not praying to some fantastical man up in the sky that controls everything and created.
Look how hickey goes doing that skip scap skibbity dap dap. Here's the deal. You can if you
Richard
want
Dawkins
to.
is right.
If you want to. You can test that. You just gotta be honest and you gotta be willing to be honest when things don't go how you expect, because that's how it goes. It doesn't happen immediately. You ask for some confirmation.
You gotta be propagandized from youth.
Well, hey, I'm saying try it for yourself. At least you still have not let me get to where I'm getting to. So
Roswell?
Yeah, I'm getting there. It takes a minute. It takes a minute. So you're talking about from the evolutionary perspective. I'm excluding God. I'm saying strictly materialistically, the chances of life developing in the first place are so astronomically tiny. It's impossible.
Based on what we can observe.
Yeah, exactly. Which is science. What we can observe.
Our instruments. Yeah.
So beyond that is faith, which is what I just said. Okay, so based on what we can observe...
There's a probability based on what we can observe, which is the Goldilocks zone and other planets that are in that same...
And I also pointed out that based on what we can observe, the Goldilocks zone is also pretty much faith-based, because we can't really... Hot Jupiters sort of debunk the Goldilocks zone. They really do. Our universe, our solar system is an anomaly. It's not a model we can use to base other solar systems, because whenever we observe them through our telescopes, they're always in a way that's configured different than ours. The globular collapse model of the gas coming together into the sun and the planets, it doesn't even work because you've got planetoids that go backwards. Around Jupiter and around Mars, you've got Neptune spinning on its side. Conservation of angular momentum is lost. It doesn't work. It's a narrative. It's a mainstream narrative, I'm telling you. But say you agree with that. Say you agree with that narrative and we evolve from non-life, abiogenesis means. The chances against that are so astronomical, it couldn't have happened unguided. It could not have happened unguided twice. For there to be life that's not us, based on the evolutionary narrative and the available science, would actually predicate some force in the universe of a metaphysical quality that is greater than the universe itself making it happen, because the chances are so astronomical scientifically.
There's no evidence for it.
Scientifically, so to go beyond that, you've either got to say God, or you've got to have faith. You've got to have faith that there's aliens.
Yeah, it's faith. It's not evidence.
So that's the evolutionary perspective on it, right? So if there are more than one life form on the Earth scientifically, then that kind of is a mote in the eye of Darwin. It sort of is a disproof of evolution. It sort of proves it sort of proves there's an intelligence of design somewhere. That's just how it works.
What?
Statistically.
What?
So, because abiogenesis, life from non-life, which is inobservable except through supposition, is so rare, because from what we observe, it couldn't happen twice statistically. For there to be life that isn't what we have here on this earth would be a proof of a proof against evolution. It'd be a proof of creationism. It'd be a proof that...
You realize how big the universe is.
Yeah.
And how statistics may play out in a
1
region that
in
big.
10 to more number... 10 to, I believe it's the 27th, which is more numbers than there are atoms in the universe, is the chance of life arising from non-life abiogenetically, such that we have the right proteins for the right molecules.
Based on our planet? What we can
No,
observe?
just based on mathematics. 2 + 2 = 4. It's that kind of logic. Because our DNA...
No, because we don't have the instruments to observe life that we may be missing.
You know how binary code works on a computer?
It's a mystery. It's not something you can narrow down statistically.
Binary code on a computer, 1s and 0s, okay? Our code for DNA is like quadra-binary, GTCA. Instead of 1 and 0, we have GTCA. Or think of it as different colors: blue, red, orange, yellow. 4 different colors, each of those defining our DNA, right? Those are coded in specific pairs to make minimal functions, such that the DNA can replicate itself into cells, and those cells can replicate cells and meter the health of the body, etc., etc. It's insanely complex. It's more than any of our computer systems, all right? The first cell to function on its own as an organism would require an informational structure akin to a program from a computer to operate. That didn't happen from lightning hitting a lake, but we exist. So the evolutionary supposition, because it isn't observable and we haven't been able to replicate it, it's a faith-based claim which says somehow, for reasons we don't understand, life happened without a creative force behind it. And the chances against that thing happening again,
all you're doing is layering.
All you're doing to the 27th.
All you're doing is layering another assumption on top of that assumption.
Well, I do think the whole evolutionary
And
idea...
not only that happened, but some guy up in the sky was guiding it.
So here's your choice. Well, I'm not even trying to get into that. I'm just trying to say... I don't know. No, I'm just trying to say from the available body of data evolutionarily, it doesn't make sense that you'd have more than one intelligent species in the universe. That's the sad truth. From the secular point of view. I'm not even bringing God into the equation. Now, to bring God into the equation, I think that's the only way you've got UFOs. And we've got them. We've been created for a purpose in a universe that is a subset of a greater reality. We're the smallest point on a fractal that continues to expand into infinity, right? And as we go through our birth, life, death cycle, we graduate into the next eternal realm, etc., right? I talked to you about the universe thing. I think it's way deeper than people realize. I think it's deeper than I can conceptualize. I'm just trying to get some ideas around it, right? So that's how we're created, but we're a subset of a greater reality. There's extra dimensionality.
Based on what evidence?
Well, scripturally and personally and historically. And historically.
Give me something.
Okay, Planck's constant. Planck's constant says that at a certain level, matter can no longer be subdivided. It becomes part of everything. It's everywhere at once. This is Planck's constant. So you'd think you could cut this in half and cut it in half and keep cutting it in half infinitely. No. There's a point at which, according to what we can observe scientifically, without any religion, that becomes everywhere at once. That's Planck's constant. There is a limit to smallness.
It becomes everywhere at once. What do you mean?
It ceases to have locality. Once you cut it past that certain point, it's non-local. It's not a local event. I don't fully understand that. That's molecular physics. I am a comedian. I am not a molecular physicist. I know what I've read. I know how to phrase it. I don't know what it means.
I would say that because
I know that that's something I didn't come up with, and you can look it up right here. You can look up Planck's constant.
I would say we just...
Wikipedia, Planck's constant.
I would say we just get to the limits of our instrumentation to where we can actually physically chop something in half again and see what happens. Like...
Well, see what it says on Planck's constant. See? Yeah, NCKS. Well, it'll show it up. There it is, Planck constant. That's the smallest point.
Yeah, once it gets into quantum mechanics, it's like so
The
small.
quantum of action.
We can't observe what's
So
really
basically,
happening.
below that, that's the basic quantum of action. The minimal increment of energy.
My point is, there's limits to our instrumentation. There's limits to what we can
Well,
observe. There's limits to.
So far, our instrumentation has shown a limit to reality. Right there. That there is the quantum of energy.
So far.
And additionally...
And my thing is, we got to keep that door open instead of having a conclusion and drawing conclusions from there.
Now I agree, because that leads to Christianity. That's where that leads. I agree.
I would no.
Yes, I agree.
It leads to a big fucking question mark that we've yet to understand.
Because here's the thing. Observably, our universe has digital limits. Limits defined by digits, numbers, digital limits, right? So observably, our universe.
Not really.
You've got a limit to
if you get
smallness.
mathematical physics. There's the concept of infinity, and
infinity is a concept. It's not observed. I'm talking about observed things. Infinity is a concept, yes, but it's not observed. Randomness. They have to generate randomness. They can't do it. They have to like create programs to be random. Algorithms and whatnot to sort things. Because true randomness in the universe, true randomness as per the concept is not observed, just like true infinity. These are, yes, concepts.
Right now, what am I about to say?
I have no idea.
Banana hammock. You didn't know that?
No.
That's random as fuck.
I don't think that's random. I think God knew you were going to say banana hammock. I think
God's wearing a banana hammock right now.
I can't deny or support that claim. It's possible. It's definitely possible.
What else would you do in heaven?
I have no idea. Well, the idea.
What if you went to heaven and it was just a bunch of gay butt fucking?
The idea of like.
And you're like, you missed the whole point.
I've been punked.
You were 5 miles away from West Hollywood the whole time, and you missed the whole